Welcome to the Wayne Bennett Podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to Wayne Bennett's Podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Bennett. This is episode 166. It's May the 5th, 2025, Cinco de Mayo. We don't have any tequila with us this morning, but we do have a former athlete. He's an entrepreneur. He's a businessman. He's the only guy in West Virginia that has a legal license plate that says "Let's Fish." Mr. Troy Stiffler, welcome.
How are you, sir?
Now, you're from the Woodrow Wilson class of 1990. Yes. And there's a good bunch of guys, Ryan Neal, Boogie Reed, and Phil Norman, Jim Lilly. We've had Ryan and Boogie on here before.
Right, yeah.
And you guys hung around a lot together.
We still do today. That's a great group of friends. And in life, you don't have a whole handful of friends, a whole bunch of friends. You just got a handful of them. And Boogie and I talked a couple times a week. He lives in Florida. And Ryan, the mayor of Beckley there, him and I are together almost every day still. And, we've made lifelong friendships. And I think it'll be like that the rest of our lives.
I remember you in high school. You were a year behind my son on the baseball team, but I don't remember you earlier. Did you play ball when you were younger?
I did. I'm not originally from West Virginia, so my mother and father moved here in the early 80s. My granddad built these interstates that came through West Virginia, the I-64 corridor down there. And so we came out of Pennsylvania, and when my grandfather's company got the contract there to do the interstate, my parents come down. My grandparents went on to Florida to finish their career down there, and my parents stayed in West Virginia. My mother worked 30 years at Appalachian Hospital. My dad's retired from Pinecrest Hospital.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's a lot of people. We moved here in 6th grade, went to Maxwell Hill for 1 year, and then went to Beckley Junior High, and then, of course, Woodrow Wilson.
Did you play any ball when you were in Beckley Junior High?
Oh, yeah, I played football all 3 years at Beckley Junior High. I wrestled there at Beckley Junior High, too.
Who was the coach then? Was Alexander coaching or Ron Sauls?
I cannot remember that. That is crazy that I can't remember. It was a great group of wrestlers on that team. Matt Epling was on that team. I cannot remember for the life of me.
I remember the year my son was a senior, you guys went to the state tournament and in baseball. Mm-hmm. And the next year you had guys like Brent Canterbury and Chris Daniels was back, and you were starting at first.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
You was a crusher, wasn't you?
Yeah, I was really good in baseball. It's so funny. I have 3 boys now, and all of them have been great athletes growing up, and none of them have played baseball.
Really?
Yeah, not one of them. And so I was on the American Legion Post 32 with John, for several years on there with the older group than me. I was one of the youngest guys on that Post 32 team, and when we traveled with Larry Hickman and
that was a good bunch of guys.
Mike Mullins, and it was a good group of baseball players on that team.
Now the 1990 Woodrow team, I can remember 2 times, or 1990 team after John had graduated. One time you hit a home run against Milton. Chris Daniels hit one earlier, and you guys were behind, and then you hit one, and you guys ended up winning 9-7. And then there was another game you playing Nicholas County. You crushed one against Nicholas. I think they're still looking for that ball.
I don't know how you can remember that. I could barely remember that myself. And,
I think they're still looking for that ball.
I could play some baseball. It was a great time back then, and I should have played football because I have the size of an offensive lineman. Boogie Reed always tells me if he was my size, he'd be retiring from the NFL right now. So.
How come you didn't play football?
It's a different story. I think there was a different time back then. I think my parents were new to the area and they didn't know a lot of people, and it just didn't work. I played at Beckley Junior High all the way up through. Yeah. I played in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade at Beckley Junior High, and then went to Woodrow Wilson, and it's just one of those things that never came to fruition. And you look back all those years later. I was a good athlete, and I could have really probably been a good football player too.
Now that you mentioned that American Legion team, who was the coach of the American Legion?
Jack Kyle.
Okay.
Epling was there the very first year, and then Mr. Kyle come in, Jackie Kyle's dad, and was the coach of that team. Brent Canterbury's dad, Mr. Canterbury, was assistant coach. I mean, it was a great group of baseball players. Of course, Brent was on that team. Your son was on that team. Jackie Kyle was on that team. Larry Hickman was on that team. Mike Mullins, Scott Kelly. I mean, it was a great group of baseball players. Yeah.
Well, I know in your senior year, you were all Coalfield that year. And I thought you guys should have got a mention, and you and Chris and Brent probably should have got a mention in All-State, but I don't know who did I don't know whether you had enough talking on this end. Sometimes it's a little political, or you need a little help.
I still see Coach Parham, periodically, and he says the same thing. Here's old Stiffler. Boy, could you crush that baseball.
Well, now where did you get, after you graduated, what'd you do after high school?
Well, I worked 14 years. I went to Beckley College there, and, and I worked 14 years here in Raleigh County. It's kind of how I got my entrepreneurial spirit. I worked for LaGrange Leather, Don and Lanny Bryant, that had the leather store.
I went to school with Lanny.
Yeah, Lanny and Don really have taught me everything in my life, more Don than Lanny. But everything to this day, I credit back to Don being my mentor in life and teaching me about small business. And I can remember Don and I arguing. I was a young man, in my early 20s, and I worked for them a long time. It was really my first job I ever had. For 14 years, I worked for them. And Don taught me a lot about business and life.
Lanny had, when we went to high school, he always wore his hair short and slick and, just clean cut guy. And then after he got out of high school, he let his hair grow, started doing leather work. And, then he and Donnie, when they hooked up, they, one of the best times I ever had, they had opened a place up down at Myrtle Beach, and I ran into them down there, and we went out and ran around a little bit together.
Oh, yeah. Those guys were smart. It started back in their early days with, they got in that Western industry right at the right time. And like you said, Lanny actually started the business, and then, later on, Don and Lanny kind of split up there a little bit, and Lanny went into the Western world and became a bootmaker and had his whole line of boots, and had a group of championship horses there, Quarter Horse Congress, and all the major shows. And Don and Vicky went on to live in Hilton Head there at the end of, and so they were super successful. And I've said it thousands of times in my life. If it wasn't for Don, I probably wouldn't do what I do today and been so successful with owning my own businesses.
And both those guys died way too young.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Don died at 57, and Lanny passed a few years ago. And Don was super athletic. He kept himself in great shape, and just unfortunately, 57 years old, he passed away.
Yeah, he used to live right up the road here from us.
Sure did.
He'd come down and get me every once in a while, and we go play Sandlot basketball. He's a pretty good basketball player, And but now you, after the graduation, you worked with them. When did you get married and start having kids? Was it around in that time?
It was about that time. I got married, and my oldest son, TJ's 30 years old now. So that kind of puts it in perspective there. I have 3 sons. They're 30, 23, and I still have one there at Woodrow Wilson that's 16 years old. And if I make it through this last one, it'll be a miracle. But no, my boys have been great. They're super successful. TJ lives in Pittsburgh and has a great job there in Pittsburgh. Tristan is out west in Colorado at this time. He's in the oil field industry as a safety guy, and he's out in Colorado working.
Did you ever have to do any coaching when they were playing?
I did. They played football all the way up through midget league into high school, and I never did coach football, but they all were great, athletes and great football players, and all of them great. I've lived in Summers County now for 20 years, but still, my boys have all went to Woodrow Wilson. We we decided because of sports that we would, they would come up here and go. I live right at the bottom of the mountain there at Sandstone. If I actually swim across the river, I'm on the Raleigh County side. So it's been great experience at Woodrow. Woodrow Wilson's a great school, and I love their coaches, and they just get opportunity there that they couldn't, especially with wrestling. Summers County doesn't have wrestling. They have great athletic programs, but all those boys have wrestled, and they really enjoy wrestling, and so there we are.
Now you, as a baseball player back when you were younger and stuff, who'd you follow as a major league team? Who was your team?
The Athletics, the A's.
Really?
Yeah. I
You're the first guy I've ever met.
Ricky Henderson, I thought was a great player out there. They've had Jose Canseco and, what was the other home run hitter? What played out there forever?
Mark.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so I just, always liked the Athletic A's, and I know they were a long way from home, and that was my team. And still, watching baseball today, I still follow the Athletics. My brother was in to visit my dad yesterday, and him and my dad sit and watch baseball. My dad's a huge baseball fan, and we still watch baseball all the time.
Well, that's the way I am. I'm kind of unusual. I followed the Senators when I was a kid because it's the first team I ever saw play live. The Senators played the Cleveland Indians in Washington.
Oh, yeah. And
then the team folded, and I started following Baltimore when Ripken played.
Right,
and then the Nationals came back and took the Senators' place, and now I'm a Nationals fan. But everybody around here, I've always been kind of a Reds fan too. You got to be a Reds fan.
My good buddy Ryan, he's always been a Reds fan too.
But I like baseball. I enjoy the pros. I enjoy college baseball.
I do too.
And it's just something now. Now, was it Tristan that was wrestled heavyweight?
Yes.
And it was a unique situation.
Yeah.
That was he was in there with Ian Pomeroy, and
both of them were good wrestlers.
Yeah, and they would one week Tristan would wrestle, one week Ian would wrestle, and then it came down to the regionals, and only one of them could wrestle.
That's right.
And of course Ian ended up third place in the state, had a good tournament.
Right.
But I feel like Tristan would have been right there too.
I think so too. I think it's one thing in high school wrestling that, and I know you've talked about it for years and advocated to do it. It's a terrible situation when you have two great athletes on the same wrestling team in the state of West Virginia that they both can't, finish in the region to be able to go to the state tournament. And that was a prime example. And Woodrow Wilson this year, actually, too. I mean, they had a great second string wrestling team, and I think a lot of those boys, had the opportunity that they could have placed in the states.
Yeah.
Matt Osborne did such a good job and had really one of those dream teams this year, and he was a lot of good wrestlers that's coming up this season that's going to be right there in that state tournament again.
Now, the NCAA hasn't done anything yet, but they're kind of starting to lean that direction now. The National Wrestling Coaches Association in wrestling and college, like Liberty University and some of them,
right.
They can take extra guys. If they have a 10-man team, sometimes they can take as many as 12 or 13 to the national tournament. So it's they're kind of changing the rules a little bit, but it'll be slow for NCAA before they do stuff like that. And now with the Neal, I mean, you got a guy who's second team, say on Penn State, which is the best, and he can wrestle anywhere. First
right. That's exactly right.
So there's a lot of moving around, But now how did you? You were involved with the beef jerkies.
I was. There was 4 partners originally with Beef Jerky Allen. I was one of those partners with Steve Davis and Aaron Neal, and of course Ryan. And that was a great business. The beef jerky stores that we sold in Myrtle Beach are still super successful. The gentleman that bought them out of Richmond, Virginia, he's opened 2 new stores there in Myrtle Beach, and They were just great stores. And then in 2019, I decided to go a different direction, and Ryan purchased the stores, and he still owns all the franchises as we speak, and they're doing a different gas station format, and I think you'll see those stores open back up again in West Virginia. But that was a great experience for us. I've been super honored and privileged to own my own businesses now. Most of my life, I worked 10 years for the American Red Cross and 14 years for Dawn and Lanny, but I really haven't done anything else but work for myself. And the beef jerky, when we first initially got in that, we were one of the first franchisees in the country, and then became the largest franchisee. We had 6 stores in Myrtle Beach and 4 stores back here in West Virginia. And it was such an honor to me to have those pristine stores and people traveling from West Virginia to Myrtle Beach. And we had our WVU flags flying in our store. But you don't hear this very often, what I'm getting ready to say. We took all that money we made in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, instead of keeping it down there, it all came back here to West Virginia. And you don't hear a lot about that. You hear a lot of businesses outside of West Virginia owning them and taking money out of West Virginia and going other places. That we totally did the opposite.
Yeah. How many stores has Ryan got now?
He has 5 franchises that he owns. There's one of them open up on Harper Road.
Okay.
And I think he's in the process of working on something right now that's super special. And I think that you'll see more of them open up here real soon.
Now, how long have you been fishing? Your whole life? Or?
Yes. So fishing has been a passion for me. Growing up in high school, me and John Helvey and a bunch of the guys, Devin Groves, when we would get out of school, we'd head to Summers County to the river and down there fishing. And I just loved that part of the state. I think the New River Gorge National Park is a super special place that West Virginia has, and I just loved being there on the water. And as an adult, my goal is to have a home there on the river somewhere. And so that's what I kept looking. Finally, it's been just a little less than 20 years ago, I purchased my first home down there on the river. And as far as New River Trophy Outfitters, the company that I've owned, that company's been in business. This is the 27th year New River Trophy Outfitters has been an entity. And
Sammy Pugh owned that for a while.
Sammy was my business partner. So
okay.
So if you know Sammy's an outstanding individual, great guy. Him and I partnered up in 2012. And I met Sammy through Outlowing and LA East Fitness, and became friends with Sammy, and him and I became partners later on in life. And now, as of 2024, I purchased the company off of Sammy, and I still own the company by myself.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Now you tell me a little bit about that business. Though, a typical day, if you've got people coming in, you're going to take out on the boat. Where do you meet and stuff like that?
So this week was a busy week for us. We ran 29 trips last week, and typically those are early days. And the crazy thing is, people come from all over. I'm not talking even the United States. I'm talking all over the world to come into West Virginia, especially since it's got its national park status there in December 2020. So they show up at our base camp, which is in Meadow Creek, West Virginia, which is just off of 64 there. They come to our base camp, and depending on what section, what trip they have booked, we have a wide variety of things that we do, from half days to overnights to marathon trips. I mean, there's all kinds. We have Airbnbs there on the river now, but we start like yesterday. We had guys that were from the northern part of the state of West Virginia, and 2 guys that were here from Florida. And then the guys from Florida was the first time they'd ever been with me. The guys from upstate, this was their 8th or 9th time they had went fishing with us. But we put in there in Meadow Creek, and we went to the Grandview Sandbar yesterday, fished about 12 miles, and they caught 114 fish between the 2 boats yesterday.
Wow.
Fishing's really been good. We had another group. I do a lot of corporate outings. Friday, we had 6 boats out. I can run 8 boats in one day. Friday, we ran 6 full days, and they caught over 400 and some on that.
Now, all these are catch and release?
Catch and release. We have fished that catch and release section. It's been 20 years since it's been catch and release on that section from Sandstone to the Grandview Sandbar. So the fishing has just really begun. We've had a great few years of the spawn where we haven't had much high water in the spring. We've had high water, but not during the spawn, and just the fishing is I think it's going to continue just to get better. I think the West Virginia DNR and the National Park Service has done an outstanding job managing that river. It's just a special place to me. I mean, I love this state more than anything, and I love that New River Gorge National Park. I mean, it'll be, it's coming, and the time is now. I say this right now to business owners, Summers County, Fayette County, Beckley too. You all sit right here in the hub between those two major counties of that national park. National Park starts in Hinton and goes over to Fayette County, and you're seeing people from all over come to visit our state, and it's amazing to me.
It's kind of like when the whitewater rafting first came around,
Exactly.
But back then when they first started, they didn't have the internet so much, and they would have to go to the shows all over the place and sell packages.
Too. We don't do it as much because you're 100% right. I've had 1 million people on. A little less than 1 million people on our social media page in 28 days on that New River Trophy Outfitters page. And so there's a lot of people that visit, through the internet now. I mean, it's a powerful tool. You know that more than anybody.
Oh, yeah.
But I do a video from the river just about every day or every other day. And I've got 10,000 followers on my New River Trophy Outfitters Facebook page, and I do have a TikTok. I don't manage it; my wife does, but she does a really good job, and it's. Well,
does your wife is she have another job, or does she?
Yes. So my wife has worked in Summers County about the last 15 years from now. I don't know if you know who Ken Allman is. Kenny Allman. Kenny is the philanthropist that has put all that money back into Summers
He's
County.
The Ritz Theater and all those.
That. So Ken owns a company called Practice Link, which is the largest doctor recruiting firm in the United States. And they recruit physicians for hospitals. Say Raleigh General needs a nephrologist, and they help negotiate those contracts. But Ken he's an outstanding individual, first of all. He's really paid it forward back to his community in Summers County, and he has a great staff. My wife is the vice president of operations for his company over there. So probably you were asking me if she helps me in the business. She tries to. She really does, but she has a pretty demanding job herself.
Well, they've got the Otter and the Oak and the pizza
market,
place.
All that too. They own about 70 properties there in Summers County. There's a lot of stuff coming in the future. To Summers County, to Hinton, into that area. I think Jack Scott, the mayor there, Jack's a great guy. I think he's got great vision of what's going to happen in the future. I have a picture that I have as a screensaver that I saved of Gatlinburg in 1972, and it looks exactly like Hinton does in 2025. Really? And you're seeing massive growth down there. Real estate has went through the roof. I've been buying properties for the last 14 or 15 years there in Summers County, and they have skyrocketed in price-wise. It's just unbelievable how much they have went up in price, and it's only going to continue to. And I hope it's a good thing. It'll be a good thing for the economy. I was talking to another business owner, and I think the New River Gorge National Park will be the next how Cole was in West Virginia years ago. I mean, you will see tremendous growth with the national park. Just amazing how many people come here. Yeah. I mean, I every day I can see them log into my website, and people from all over the United States, and they're logging into my website, looking at my fishing company. It's because of the national park status.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, we've been down there for Railroad Days and the Water Festival,
yes.
and I mean, they do it right. It's amazing because it's kind of funny. Hinton's kind of dear to us because when Diane and I first got married, which we were very young and very poor, we went to Hinton for our vacation, for our honeymoon.
Everybody used to do that. Miner's vacation, they would go to the rivers and camp. My wife's family was the same way. And
we actually went to the Ritz Theater and watched a movie while we were there that weekend.
Have you been down there lately since they've redone it and looked at it?
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's something else.
Ken's a special guy. I mean, he is...
Now, I saw the film Academy Sports did for you guys. So I think you...
Academy Sports with Marty Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marty, that was a neat experience. I've had the privilege and honor to be meet some great people in the river and got to do things in my life, Mr. Bennett, that I'd never been able to do. I've got to fish all over and go on hunts, and just by, being friendly and being nice and running a great company, I've got to do. And doing the example with Marty Smith, Marty Smith's a great individual, grew up on the New River there in Virginia. And I was honored that they called me and asked me to do that. Curtis Fleming from Fly Rod Chronicles. I've been with Curtis several times on the Discovery Channel. So, like I said, I just get to do a lot of things. Owning that business, it's pretty neat.
Are there limitations on how many boats you can take out, or have to get a license other than a business license?
Oh yeah, I'm licensed through the state of West Virginia. The DNR still controls our license, our outfitter's license. It's the same as the whitewater. We can go in the whitewater section. We're limited to the number of people that we can have in one boat, but we can fish all over the gorge. It just came in December of 20 when we got the national park status. Kind of changed my company a little bit, because now I'm able to rent kayaks and duckies and that kind of stuff too. So I do all that now.
Where you put in and take out, do you have to pay royalties or anything?
I own the boat. We own the boat ramp. So I was fortunate enough to be able to buy one of those places there. And so we actually lease our boat ramp to the DNR, and which makes it super nice that we have access right there. I mean, literally, I can throw a baseball to the river, in the river from my house where I personally live. And then my Airbnbs are all right there on the river too. And our base camp is right there. Oh. So literally we're driving 50 yards to put our boats in the morning, where a lot of the companies, we got to travel a long way to get to the river. I live right there on it.
Now, are you on the Raleigh County side?
I'm on the Summers County side.
You're on the Summers
County.
So
if you get off the Sandstone exit and turn right, have you ever been right? Most people don't even know the little town.
Past the school, it used to be the school.
Visitor Center, yeah. The old Sandstone. Yeah. There's a little town there called Meadow Creek.
Okay.
And Meadow Creek was an old railroad town. There's about 20 homes in that little town. They all sit right there on the river. And I bought my first house in that little town about 20 years ago.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I know when whitewater rafting first came around and stuff, and then some of the commercial, do you ever get any flack from locals? I mean, people that resent the commercial guys?
I think you do a little bit, especially, that generation's moving on, I mean, you used to get it a lot more. But I think as the new generation's lazy, they're not even out on the river, you know what I mean? It take an act of Congress to get those kids out to do stuff. And I think that not anymore. In that section of the river, we actually fish. So my personal belief is I love fishing above the dam too, above the lake. Even over on the Virginia side, the river's great up there. But from that Meadow Creek to Glade Creek, that 6-mile stretch is only accessible in there but by boat. And so you can't get, you can walk in there a long way, but most people don't do that either. It's only accessible but by boat. And that's why the fishing's so good in there, and it's been great.
What about competition, commercial?
There's a few of us that do what I do. I run probably more trips than any of the other companies that's been around. Bobby Bauer, Bobby went to Woodrow Wilson. He might be John's age, or maybe
I know Bob.
Bobby's a great individual. He has a company called Pro River Outfitters, and Robert C., Larry Nybert, those guys still have their fishing companies, but they stay on the other end. Mine's up on the upper end of the New River there, and more in the Summers County. They're down in the Fayette County. That shuttle's a tough shuttle. I come by your house 20 times a week because we take out down here at the bottom of the mountain, and we fish about 12 miles. But if I take out of Glade Creek, which my guys are taking out of Glade Creek today, it's a 74-mile round trip for us to pick those guys up.
Mm. Yeah. That ties that. You don't do too many of them.
No, well, unfortunately we do a bunch of them, but that shuttle's terrible. Too bad they couldn't make a road down. They have access to do it, but they probably would never do it.
But what other than smallmouth though? There's all kinds of fish, types of fish.
Gosh, the walleye program. I did the walleye study with the Department of Natural Resources probably 12 years ago. And for 36 months, I took a fish biologist down the river. We did 26 miles in 2 days. We had 29 fish tagged. We had 9 muskie and 20 walleye. And we studied their migration pattern. I learned so much working with those guys. And But they've done an outstanding job on those walleyes, introducing walleyes back to the New River. And I mean, they're getting giant in there, 30, 35 inches. And now they've released part of the catch and release on those. So after Meadow Creek, where the creek dumps in there to the New River, you can keep 2 walleyes a day, one over 30 and one under 20. And those are good fish, good eating fish. I mean, if you've ever eaten walleye,
I never have.
Yeah, we're catching walleye about every day. They migrate up to the falls because, of course, they can't get any further than that. And then they'll spread out all over the river again. So I'm talking tens of thousands of them, not just, a bunch of them.
Well, you said you fished all over the world. Do you ever get into deep sea fishing?
I'm not a saltwater guy. I have done all of it, yes. But, I'm a freshwater fisherman. My ultimate goal here is in a few years, once I get the youngest one out of school and getting him on a career path, I'm probably going to spend my winters in Florida, is what I'm thinking about doing. My wife can do a lot of her work from remote. And, the outfitters is a seasonal thing through that. December, January, February, you're slow. And I love Vero Beach, Fellsmere, down there with all those freshwater lakes in Florida. And I probably will end up down there, maybe being a Walmart greeter and fishing every day.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the pickle business a little bit. How did that? I've been thinking about it since I knew you were coming. But I thought, I'd never dreamed of a pickle business even before. But then I got thinking about it. I said, it doesn't. You don't have to buy a lot of equipment or anything like that to go into the pickle business. How did you get into that?
I wish I would have started it when I first had the idea. And it's like all great ideas. I didn't come up with it. I just stole it and knew I could do it better. I met a gentleman in Florida in 2015 that had a pickle stand in an indoor flea market in between Ormond Beach and Daytona Beach. And his family had operated this pickle stand for 50 years. And they did the same thing that I do. They have all their gourmet flavors. And I sit and watch this guy, and this is when we owned the beef jerky stores. And I was like, what a lucrative business. I've looked for business opportunities in my life that cater to a large group of people. So, if you have something that only sells to women, your demographic shrinks way down, and you can only sell to women. But beef jerky, I always used to say it was 8 to 80. 8-year-olds would eat it, 80-year-olds would eat it. So pickles is 10 times that. It's from 1 to 100. And if you look at statistically the numbers of beef jerky sales to pickle sales in the United States of America, it's 20 times fold what pickles sell in the United States compared to beef jerky. Average person eats beef jerky twice a year. Pickles just, it's just amazing how much industry, how many different varieties and how big pickle business is. But in 2015, I met this gentleman. Long story short, we owned the beef jerky stores. I come back and I told the fellas, I said, man, we ought to introduce this into our beef jerky stores. That's another way revenue service in our company. Well, we never put it together. I sold the company to Ryan in 2019. I only had the outfitters company. Winter months are slow. I told my wife, I said, I'm bored to death. I said, I'm going to start working on that pickle business. And that's how it came. I knew the flavors that would sell because Ryan and I, in 10 years, sold over $35 million worth of beef jerky. And so we knew what flavors were popular in that beef jerky. And so all I did was took the seasonings and the flavorings and turned them in and made them pickles. So I knew the hot, slap your mama, pineapple habanero. And then I have continued to create recipes. Now we're about 50 different flavors in the line. And we don't do all 50 at one time because it would be a disaster. It's a lot of work to do it. But it has been. So
you produce yourself?
So we started in the beginning producing everything, from, putting cucumbers in. But we do so many of them. I work with a co-packer now. Now, as far as flavoring all those pickles, we flavor every bit of them. So they come in, started process from a co-packer that has been great to me. The guys from, I'm sure Keith and Kenny Crook from the Crook Brothers. Those dudes are outstanding. They've become great friends of mine, and they have been a huge asset to me because what do you do with a pickle that has to be refrigerated? And you've got an 18-wheeler full of pickles. So they've helped me. They got great storage space in Charleston, West Virginia, that they're able to house whatever I do. They've got the equipment, 18-wheelers and stuff, able to get whatever I need. They were huge. We took 12-ton, 24,000 pounds of pickles to the state fair this year. They were a big play in it. They brought their Crook Brothers trucks down there and set them for me and let them running all week. And so we start that process, and then I was using the church there at Sandstone, the fellowship hall, and we're building. I had pickles everywhere. Mr. Brandon, it was crazy. My wife was about ready to kill me, and so we put a facility in the crab orchard, and I opened it about 10 months ago, and it's a commercial facility with huge walk-in coolers, all stainless steel kitchens, bays that we're able to back our trailers in and load because we have refrigerated trailers. We move all those pickles in, and it's been phenomenal. We just went to Kentucky last weekend, me and Ryan and a group of us, and worked 4 days in Kentucky. We took the pickle trailers down there, took 2.5 ton of pickles.
At the Hillbilly Days?
Hillbilly Days.
Oh, yeah, that's
big.
It's huge.
That's huge. I told Ryan when we come back, I said, as the mayor of Beckley needs that right there. They generated 200,000 people were at that thing, more than the West Virginia State Fair in 10 days. They had 200,000 in 4 days. They did it. The whole city shut down, and it was just a fun. That's a Shriners benefit for the Shriners. Is who puts that on. It's the largest Shriners benefit in the United States of America, and it was a neat thing to do. But we have about 31 different events on the books this year, and probably another 250 ask in my inbox for us to come to their events too. And it's just amazing the response, but they're good. You can look at our reviews online, and our pickles are great.
After a while, you got to kind of pick and choose between where you go because some of them are smaller than others, and I guess the season is like during the spring and summer and fall.
It's a different the pickle business because you got a lot of stuff in the fall. Even going into January and February, there's some festivals, so there's definitely things you could do all year round. I think there's a key play, and Streets Rat and I are working this out right now. I think there's a huge fundraiser ability with these pickle stands. You could do fundraisers for football, volleyball. You could do different schools, whatever you want to do. You set these stands up, they get part of the, proceeds. You could do Woodrow Wilson Football Day, but we're working with Street right now to put the first one into play, and then it could be a big.
I saw you at the Fallen Heroes wrestling thing. And
I did that for my middle son, Nick Hilton, and those guys from over at or Nick's from Liberty, but the guys from over at Independence put that show on, and they asked me to do. We donate that money back to the school programs there, and people don't know that tournament's put on by Independence High School there, but they donate a lot of that money back to Woodrow Wilson High School's wrestling program too.
Oh yeah,
because they help out. So I love to help out the kids, and I think in today's, you get those young adults in there, young kids, and they come work the pickle stands, and if you can just teach them, a few things that they can grasp, maybe one day in the future. I think there's a lot. I think in today's world, the younger generation has the best opportunity to be entrepreneurs ever in their lives because, the generational kids are different. And if you have the want to and the will to do it, there's money. I grew up poor as it can be. My parents were super poor, and I've been super blessed now to be super successful and make an outstanding living for myself. And I think this generation has a huge opportunity to be able to do that too.
Where do you get your pickles from?
They're sourced from all over. They're coming out of Mexico right now. So we use a cucumber and pickle. A pickled cucumber. So they're smaller. Not like a regular cucumber you would see in a store. So there's a specific pickle designed for pickling, and they take a special pH in the soil to grow. So some of them do come from the United States. California produces a lot of them. Mexico produces a bunch. We were a little concerned about the tariffs, coming out of Mexico. But President Trump, he put no tariffs on vegetables yet. So it's been no problem whatsoever.
Who actually, while you're fishing, who's running the pickle business?
Well, I do both of them, really. The outfitter business, I have 13 guys that work for me on the outfitter side that have done an outstanding job. Charlie, my lead guy, has been with me for almost 20 years. And it really runs itself. The customers show up, take in fishing, shuttle driver picks them up. I mean, not to say that it's just super easy, but, it's planned out months ahead of time. They're not calling today, going fishing tomorrow. They booked 6 months ago. I mean, everything runs smooth. And even with the pickle business, like this weekend, it's not an everyday operation. I guess it's started but it might move into everyday real soon. Like this weekend, we're going to Greenbrier County for 3 days to the spring flea market, which is a huge event in Greenbrier County.
I've been there.
It's sold out this year, completely sold out every spot. And it's a big event. So we'll be in the pickle warehouse starting tonight and making sure our inventory is where it needs to be. And, if pickles need flavored, some of them you can do quick. Some of them take weeks to be able to sit and to be able to get that flavor in them. And when you own your own business, there's no much time to rest.
That's what some people don't understand. I mean, you're working nights, weekends. I mean, it's you got to do it.
And it's a family thing for us too. And I told my wife just not too long ago, I said, I hope Trip one day don't grow up to hate me. I said, because we go on vacation and work, we're working all the time. But I think in order to be successful and not to have to work, I've not had a career, job where I've got tons of money in my retirement. I have property and Airbnbs and a residual money with the outfitters that can go on for the next 20 years. But as far as that, government 401k, and that's, I don't have that. So I'm that individual that's going to have to keep working and make sure I've got streams of revenue coming into my life. If I want to live the lifestyle that I have and be able to retire, I don't want to be working forever.
Yeah, I understand that. Is there any competition in the pickle business?
No. I mean, there's a few. There's a guy out of Columbus, Ohio, the Crazy Cucumber. Him and I meet up. There's Peter Piper Pickles out of Pennsylvania. Probably the pickle business, though, I own in LA East and the other businesses that I've owned in my life, the pickle business is probably the hardest because everything's so heavy. Those buckets are 50 pounds a piece when they come in. You're getting tons of pickles. You're touching them multiple times, flavoring them. And it's a tough gig to be able to do all that. Yeah. When you're taking 2.5 tons of pickles 4 hours down the road, they don't load themselves. They don't unload themselves. It's a hard job.
You mentioned kind of a bucket list, retiring or moving to Florida and especially the winter months, those kind of things. Anything else on the bucket list that comes to play? I mean,
yeah, we're working on a few things through the Pickle Guy. We're in the final stages to be able to ship nationwide. That's one reason we opened our facility there in Crab Orchard too. Once that button's clicked, the website's been built. And once that button's clicked, it'll open up a whole nother window. So we'll process and pack all the shipping products there in our Crab Orchard location. So it's in the Pretty's facility there, Max Pretty facility there right beside the U.S. Post Office is one reason we put that right there, because we knew in the back of our mind, in Kentucky this week, you're there for 4 days in Kentucky selling pickles. You leave and they eat them all in 2 days. And the first thing, 150 messages come through our inbox yesterday wanting to know how they get pickles again. How do I get them? And so this year, we had 2 goals in 2025. The shipping aspect is the number one, which will open up a whole new stream of revenue. And it's right there, ready to go. And then the number 2 thing that we're doing is, and I think this could become a whole new category and could be really big, is we're going to bottle our pickle juice. We get more calls for pickle juice, or as many as pickles. And so all that pickle juice that we have in buckets left over, we can't sell it. It's non-sellable because we've been dipping in it. You're in and out of it all day. So I told my wife, I said, why don't we just flavor and bottle our pickle juice? And she said, well, figure it out. So I figured it out. This was the first weekend that we bottled our pickle juice and sold it. It sold completely out. Yeah. So pickle juice has a lot of benefit in life, health benefit, gut, healthy gut, cramps, athletics love it. Your marathon people love pickle juice. You wouldn't believe the people that I asked, but this weekend we made a regular deal, hot deal, spicy garlic, regular garlic, sweet and hot, and Bloody Mary. Bottled them, and I have a picture there I can show you so you can put it in your mind. They come in quart jars and sold completely out of them.
Wow.
So,
what's your number one selling flavor in pickles?
Probably the ranch.
Really?
You know, West Virginia and ranch has something special. I say that all the time. But, my favorite's the sweet horseradish. But I think everybody has their, especially go different places. Like we went to Kentucky, sold completely out of all of our garlic. We went to Pennsylvania there a month or so ago, sold completely out of the horseradish. It depends on where you're at, what market you're in, what they like.
That's amazing, I tell you. One other thing that we didn't mention, you probably didn't know this, but I'm sure this is one of the highlights of on March the 8th, 2024, you got a squeeze of the water bottle and a newspaper from Wayne Bennett's wrestling column.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
So you're in the elite group now.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, listen, man, I appreciate you coming by and talking to us, man. I've learned a lot, and I admire you even more than I did because you got it going on, and good luck with your fishing and your pickling business and whatever else you got.
I always say it's not luck. Luck is if I win the Powerball tonight. That would be luck. I'll keep working hard and we'll make it successful. But I appreciate you, Wayne, doing what you do. I think it's super important that people hear about West Virginia, and I think you do an outstanding job with the group of people that you bring in here. I think it's a pleasure watching your podcast, and you keep up that work because West Virginia needs it, West Virginians need it, and we need positive stuff in our life, and I think you do a positive thing, and I appreciate what you do.
Well, thank you, and you're welcome back anytime.
I appreciate that.
Anybody else out there that'd like to be on our program, you can come and see me or hit me up at awbennett50@gmail.com and we'll get you on here. And remember, until next time, if you're not dead yet, you're not done yet. God bless you.